Good evening, my dear friends, and welcome to this part of Maunday Thursday's celebration. And it is good that we can come together in love. It is good that we can come as brothers and sisters in service to love, to all that is, as a beloved of God. But first, excuse me, I would like us to just be still for a moment, to be still in the presence of the one who is love, the cosmic Christ. And I would like us first to invoke the intercession of Archangel Michael. And I share this out of love, out of concern for all light workers, many of whom we are being stressed, stretched, tested, and many of us are left feeling bewildered, exhausted, depleted in energy. It's as if there's two polarities of light and dark, and it would appear that there is a warfare where many of us are being really tested. And it may be that we are being reprogrammed with the light of divine love to receive a rebirthing of the risen cosmic Christ in our hearts this coming Easter Sunday. That is my heart response. So let us just reflect. And if you have a candle handy, I would like to invite you to light your candle for all light bringers of peace, especially those of us who are being tested. But we know that the love of the Father, Mother, God Supreme in the company of heaven, under the protection of Michael the Archangel, we will be safeguarded against the onslaught of negative forces that seek to destabilize us in our spiritual walk with love, God's love. So we light this light in the name of our Father, Mother, God Supreme, who creates life, who creates all life, your life, my life. And in the name of the suffering, barefoot Galilean, who shed his blood that we might be free, who loves life. And in the name of the Spirit, who is the love that exists between the Father, Mother God, and the Christ. And in the presence of Gaia, Kuan Yin, Mother Mary, Magdalena, and Isis, in the presence of the messengers of God, we come to this table to walk with the Beloved in this Easter Triduum, Holy Thursday. But first I would like to share with you a reflection. And the reflection is from another great teacher who's in spirit, the great Thomas Merton. And Thomas Merton says this: the rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of its innate violence. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone in everything, is to succumb to violence. Can we reflect on those words? For each one of us, in one way or another, may benefit from listening to those words in their heart, that we succumb to violence when we neglect ourselves, when we fail to take time to be still, and especially for those of us who are Christian and who follow the Christ, it is important that having come through the Lenten season of spiritual reawakening and preparation, that we hear the words of the Beloved and not our ego. I would like us to come on a journey, the journey from Palm Sunday. Were you one in the crowd that was waving palms at the Christ as he passed you by? Were you there? Or were you one of the crowd that condemned him to death? Only history will say, but for now we come into the presence of love, and we focus in our meditation this evening on the washing of feet, an act of great humility, with the Son of God knelt down and washed the feet of his friends. What an amazing experience that must have been. And so it will be for us. But let us relax now as we prepare the scene. Just relax and take a deep breath and breathe in the love of your God in the silence. I come to the garden alone. Be still. While the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the song of God discloses, and He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me I'm His own, and the joy we share as we tarry on is like no love that I have known. He speaks, and the sound of His voice is so And I'm guided to read now, if I may, from the Celtic Psalms to prepare us for our meditation with the Barefoot Galilean. On the evening of Passover, Jesus, he met with his disciples in the city. During the meal, he got up from the table, took off his outer robe, tied a towel around himself, and poured water into a basin. He began to wash the disciples' feet and to dry them with the towel. And when he was finished, he returned to the table and he said, "Do you know what I have done for you? Do you understand why I did what I did for you? You call me master and teacher, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your master and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I give you a new commandment, that you should love one another as I have loved you. So go, embrace each other in love. By this everyone will know that you are my followers and that you love me." And after the meal, Jesus withdrew with his disciples to a garden. And that meditation in the garden will be the midnight soiree this evening. But for now, I would like you to look using your third eye and visualize the room with the disciples present. Breathe in the fragrance of that room. What are your senses saying to you? What do you smell? The food? The fragrance that's been burnt? What do you see? Whom do you see? What do you hear? What are you sensing in your heart? Because you are there. You are in this upper room. You are with your beloved. For he calls you now by name. He calls you by name. And this is the one who calls you. This is the beloved who calls you by name to be seated in the presence of the Son of God. He calls you a child of God. He calls you a friend. He embraces you. He holds you. And he invites you to be still and to come and sit in front of him. I would like you to visualize this feeling, this act of great humility, where the Son of God kneels before you. He kneels before you, the beloved of God. And though many are called to this upper room to have their feet washed by the Master, the Christ, only a few come. Maybe it's out of fear. Maybe they have lost their way, where it is their head that speaks to their heart, denying them the peace of God. I would like you to take a deep breath and breathe in the love that the barefoot Galilean, Jesus, the Christ, has for you. And in your out-breaths, I would like you to release any judgments, angry words, any violent acts to yourself. Violent acts such as uncharitableness to yourself, denying yourself the closeness of God, being touched by God, being afraid to ask Jesus back into your heart. Maybe you're carrying a burden that appears too great for Christ. Maybe your mind has alienated you from your heart, where you feel lost, inadequate, helpless, despondent. Maybe there's bitterness there over a bad deed, a painful love affair. Maybe it's personal. I would like you now, in the presence of the Christ, to name your sadness, to name your fears, to name what ails you, to name what may hold you back or is holding you back from experiencing the healing touch of the Christ. Just reflect for this moment. And whatever comes up, name it, bless it, and now release it to Christ. Now look into his eyes. Do you see condemnation? No. Do you see displeasure in his eyes? No. What do you see? You see eyes that are filled with love for you. The tears in his eyes are falling down his face for you, because he has cried many tears for you. And he will show you tomorrow of an event 2,000 years ago that many say never happened, but it did happen. It did happen. Where he surrendered his freedom to be publicly humiliated as the Son of God for you and for me. And Jesus is kneeling before you now. you sense His gentleness, His compassion. His love for you is beyond words, because there are no words. For He demonstrates His love through placing your feet in a bowl of tepid water, and He begins to wash your feet. Feel the water between your toes. Sense the cleansing, the healing properties of this symbolic act of the Christ washing your feet. Can you feel His gentle hands? Hands that will be crucified to a tree. But what you feel now is the warmth of the Son of God caressing your feet, blessing your feet. And He takes your left foot out and dries it gently and places your shoe or sandal back on your feet. And now your right foot, dried with gentleness, with loving care, and places your footwear on your feet. The bowl is removed, but something is happening here. He is still kneeling in front of you. He is weary now, because as the Son of God, He knows what awaits Him. We don't, but He does. And He calls you to hold Him. He asks you to hold Him, to embrace Him in your arms. He asks you for strength. His eyes are asking you, do you love me? Do you really love me? Please hold me in your arms and allow me receive your strength. For the ordeal that I face weighs great and heavy on my heart. You hold the Master in your arms, and you can feel Him trembling, shivering. So you place your shawl around Him. You hold Him tightly, and you tell Him you love Him. And though you find it difficult to comprehend why He is shivering and appears frightened, here we have the man, the Christ, the Son of God, who became man. And in His humanity, He is feeling the weight of what He must do for the whole world. A world where many have turned their back on a loving Father, Mother God. But He loves them all the same. And He loves you. And your love is comforting Him. It is giving Him the strength to go from this room to the garden that is known as Gethsemane, a garden where He will sweat blood, a garden where even His disciples are asleep. But He knows you are not asleep. He knows that you are His beloved and that you will be with Him. And as you stand up, the Christ kisses you on each side of your face and says, I do this for you. I do this for you. Because you are my beloved. There is no one like you. You are made in the image and likeness of my Father, Mother God, and I bless you. You bow your head, and your heart is on fire with so much love that the Son of God would wash your feet and ask you to hold him. What a privilege. What a privilege. And so it is with those of us who've been called by God to embrace the spiritual life, to surrender our hearts to love, be it as a lay person or as a monastic. He does not force us, he invites us. And the more we give to him, the more we receive from him. Just sit quietly now and reflect on what God has done for you. And what is he asking of your heart this Maunday, Holy Thursday? What is he asking of your heart? Listen to his voice, for it is a soft voice in the silence of your soul. He is Alpha and Omega. He is our beginning and our end. He is the beloved who calls us to become mystics, to embrace him, to embrace his mystical heart and be transfigured in the rapture of divine love. Feel his love for you. There are no words. There are no words to describe the love that he has for you. Only you will know this. Only you. And yet many walk away. They get discouraged. They get disheartened. They throw the towel in. But those of us who stay the course and persevere regardless, he anoints us. And he sends his angels to stand guard over us. For he is the beloved. Look at his eyes. Look into the eyes of the beloved and see in that face a true image of Jesus. From the shroud, this is the face of Christ. This is the Son of God who calls you by name, who has washed your feet, and who loves you with an everlasting love.